Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first episode of the SRI-ENACT project webinar series. My name is Laura Junasova, and I am a senior project officer at Hidden Power, one of the partners of the SRI-ENACT project. To start, I would like to briefly introduce the SRI-ENACT project and explain the purpose and structure of this webinar series. Afterwards, we will delve into the main topic of today's webinar, which is the fundamentals of the Smart Readiness Indicator, SRI, covering its definition, history, and development, and the methodology used to calculate the SRI score of buildings. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to write them into the Q&A section, and we will have some time in the end of the webinar to address them. So, as many of you probably know, buildings are one of the largest sources of carbon emissions, and it is clear that urgent action is needed to reverse this trend. And while building renovations are often a long-term and costly process, there is a smarter solution, leveraging smart technologies to control energy consumption. And that's where the Smart Readiness Indicator comes in. The SRI helps evaluate how buildings can use smart technologies to optimize energy efficiency, enhance comfort, and improve overall performance without the high cost and complexity of full-scale renovations. And the SRI-ENACT project is an EU-funded project that aims to facilitate the uptake of Smart Readiness Indicator across Europe. It engages stakeholders in the co-creating process of national SRI implementations, and the project has also developed the SRI-ENACT toolkit, which includes assessment and decision support tools to promote informed decisions for smartness upgrades. The project also delivers a training and certification package for future SRI auditors, and there are 8 pilot countries in the project, namely Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Greece, Latvia, Romania, and Spain, where 120 auditors are currently assessing 1,200 buildings. And as part of this project, we are now hosting a series of 5 training webinars covering everything you need to know about Smart Readiness Indicator, from theoretical insights to practical examples of building assessments. And these sessions are designed for anyone passionate about driving sustainability and innovation in the building sector, as well as for professionals interested in becoming future SRI auditors. Therefore, I would really like to invite and encourage you to follow all the 5 episodes to get a comprehensive knowledge on the Smart Readiness Indicator. And I would also like to note that all the recordings from the webinars will be available on the Hidden Power YouTube channel, as well as on the SRI-ENACT website at www.sri-enact.eu, so you can watch them whenever you like. So that's everything for the introduction. As already mentioned, today's episode will focus on the fundamentals of SRI, and therefore I'm glad to welcome 2 experts from the SRI-ENACT project, Christoph Schwarzenbacher and Apostolis Arzenopoulos, as today's speakers. First, I would like to introduce Christoph. He is a researcher at Blueprint Energy Solutions based in Vienna. So Christoph, we are very eager to hear from you about the history and definition of Smart Readiness Indicator. So could you please explain from the very beginning, what is the Smart Readiness Indicator and why we should learn about it?
Okay, first of all, also from my side, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Laura, for the introduction. Today I may give you an overview of the definition and the history of the Smart Readiness Indicator. So let's get started. Let's get started with SRI in a nutshell. The Smart Readiness Indicator, or SRI, is essentially a tool designed to assess a building's capacity to accommodate smart services. It provides a structured methodology which was developed by the European Commission, and it can be customized according to the local context, basically to the member state. The goals of SRI are to raise awareness about the added value of building smartness, to stimulate investment in smart technologies, and last but not least, to support the uptake of these technologies in the market. It's important to note that SRI is being implemented by EU member states currently on a voluntary basis. To 2026, the ongoing SRI testing projects will be reported, and finally, 2027, it could become mandatory for certain buildings. More precisely, that should be large non-residential buildings. The SRI is currently being officially tested in 14 EU countries. Laura already named some of them within our project, but there are a few more projects going on. So all states, namely, are Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Greece, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Poland, Slovenia, and Spain. Okay. And to start with, I want to name the core objectives of Smart Readiness Indicator, which are to enhance energy efficiency, to improve occupant comfort and well-being, to enable flexibility in energy use, to encourage the adoption of smart technologies, to support policy alignment and policy integration, to promote interoperability and to promote innovation, to provide a common framework for building assessment, and to encourage data-driven decision-making. So how did SRI evolve? Let's have a quick look at SRI in the EU policy landscape. The SRI fits into the broader EU policy landscape, supporting the energy efficiency and sustainability goals, which are set out in the European Green Deal and in the renovation wave. The concept of SRI first emerged in a technical study by the European Commission in 2017, and the study introduced a draft methodology for SRI for calculating smart readiness of the buildings. Going on in 2018, the revised Energy Performance Buildings Directive, or EPBD, formally introduced Smart Readiness Indicator as a common framework for rating smart readiness of buildings across all over Europe. And then September 2020, the European Commission officially released the results of a second technical study on SRI, which were accompanied by two Excel sheets, two Excel formatted annexes, which are namely Annex C. It is about a simplified service catalog, and about Annex D, a detailed service catalog. We will hear some more about that from my colleague Apostolis later on in the methodology part. And then in December 2020, two key legal acts were published, which are the SRI Delegated Act, which establishes an optional common union scheme for assessing the smart readiness of buildings. And the second key legal act was SRI Implementing Act, which provides technical guidelines for how to implement this scheme effectively. So now, after the first overview, let's have a look at the actual SRI definition. What is the literal stated in the legal documents? How is it stated in the legal documents? According to the Commission Delegated Regulation from 2020, the SRI is an indicator that informs on the rating of smart readiness of a building or building unit in line with Article 810 of Directive 2010/31 EU. For your interest, this article refers to technical building systems. So what does it mean? In other words, what does this definition mean? It means the SRI is a metric designed to gauge the level of digitalization and technological integration within a building, indicating its preparedness to harness and optimize smart technologies for adapting the operation of buildings to the needs of the occupants and the grid, and for improving the energy efficiency of the building and the energy chain. So for supply and demand optimization. Another overview, I already mentioned some of the points, the historical overview. Just take a quick look again at the timeline. 2017, first technical study introduced the concept of SRI. 2018, SRI was formally introduced as an optional scheme in the revised EPBD. Going on between 2019 and 2020, a second technical study was conducted to fine-tune the SRI definition and calculation methodology. Then the legal framework for SRI was established through the Commission Delegated and Implementing Acts in 2020. And finally, 2021, a SRI support team was set up. It provides technical assistance for SRI testing and implementation. And yeah, it of course provides technical assistance for the testing phase. In 2021, the testing phase of SRI was launched and EU member states were invited to voluntarily implement the scheme to test it. And since then, as I mentioned, 14 member states are in this phase. Okay. Two more important things to mention again. Decision to launch SRI assessment phase is up to the member states, and there are still no formal SRI certifications issued without member state agreement. So there is no policy on that. Another overview of the member states which are testing SRI. We already mentioned all of them. Now go on with the challenges of Smart Readiness Indicator. Despite the progress made, there are several challenges that need to be addressed to ensure the effective implementation of SRI. First of all, there is a limited availability of open data, such as the data from energy performance certificate inspections. The credibility of inspection results, they may be questioned if inspectors falsely report the presence of smart technologies to improve the building's energy performance rating. This basically means that the assessment is always dependent on the auditor to a certain degree. The inspectors or auditors could lack adequate training to perform these assessments. That's what we are trying to figure out in SRI-ENACT as well. There are currently insufficient financial incentives or programs to encourage the uptake of smart technologies, also a very big challenge. And lastly, handling personal data. As in many projects, data is very, very important, and handling personal data could raise concerns regarding general data protection regulation and also regarding cybersecurity. There, we have made a SWOT analysis about several options how to integrate SRI within existing frameworks. We analyzed it on their strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and also threats. So let's have a look at that. Let's start with the first option. It's the linkage to the energy performance certificate. A strength of that would be a rapid deployment of the SRI using this existing framework. A weakness is increased EPC assessment time. Of course, there is a lot more to do if it gets expanded, and increased cost, and of course increased complexity as well. The opportunity, like the strength, would be SRI-related regulatory adjustment and funding more rapidly, but a major threat would be a backlash among building owners. So costs could raise through this linkage for the certificates. Linkage to new building and major renovations, so to make an uptake of SRI through new buildings and major renovations. This could be a motivation for the construction sector, but it could also mean few new buildings and major renovations, because it's also another thing to consider. But a major opportunity is a collaboration between different industries, smart technology industry, building industry, but also a major threat, higher prices for new buildings, of course. Another option for SRI would be an assessment through market-based schemes. It could be self-assessment, it could be third-party inspections. What the major strength is that there are almost no regulatory costs and promotion to citizens through the tool. So SRI could be promoted directly through the tool. A weakness is the lowest coverage compared to other options. If it's not mandatory, if it's only market-based, if there is no official who does the assessment, that's a major weakness. Coverage might be lower, but the opportunity, the market is engaged. That's a big opportunity for SRI if market is engaged more, and threat inspectors and building owners may not commit to this plan. Another option, similar to the market-based scheme, is a subsidized market-based scheme. So more or less strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are very similar, but the engagement could increase because, of course, subsidies, they could increase the engagement of auditors of the market. And finally, a linkage to building automation and control systems, and also to technical building systems that could influence the design and procurement of those building automation and control systems. That might be a strength. Weakness is additional regulatory costs imposed on these building automation and control systems. And an opportunity, of course, again, additional certification of the EVAC systems through the SRI, but major threat, lack of adequate certified SRI assessors, which could slow down the building automation and control system deployment. So that's something we, of course, do not want. And last but not least, a linkage to smart meter deployment could be an option for SRI uptake. That would be a very widespread deployment compared to the other options. But there is additional regulatory cost on the smart meters rollout, but an opportunity would be the engagement of utilities in the SRI scheme. And threat is the resentment against smart meters that will affect SRI as well. Okay, so far to the SWOT analysis. I think most important, of course, let's have a look at the SRI benefits. Finally, let's discuss them. What are the benefits of implementing the SRI? It could help identifying opportunities for optimizing the energy consumptions through smart systems, leading to very significant energy savings. So that's one of the major benefits of SRI. By integrating those smart technologies, the SRI could reduce operational and maintenance costs in the buildings. Also, occupants could benefit from enhanced comfort, health, and convenience. And buildings with higher SRI scores are likely to have increased market value. Of course, it's an indicator. Market value could increase through a high SRI. And through the energy efficiency and long-term cost savings, of course, it's an indicator for that. The SRI also contributes to reducing the carbon footprint of buildings, which aligns with the EU sustainability objectives. And as buildings are responsible for a significant share of energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, evaluating the SRI has great importance in the pursuit of more sustainable and intelligent urban development. To have a small conclusion on what I shared with you, to sum it up, the SRI would be a powerful tool that supports the EU's energy efficiency and sustainability goals, while offering tangible benefits for building owners and occupants alike. But I think it still needs to be extensively tested beforehand, and then we can draw more comprehensive conclusions. So how the SRI actually works, what's the methodology behind it? And that's for my colleague Apostolis. So I give back the stage to Laura and Apostolis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christoph, for this very comprehensive introduction to the Smart Readiness Indicator. I think you did a great job of clearly summarizing what is the Smart Readiness Indicator and its benefits from implementing the SRI methodology. And as you mentioned, next we will hear from Apostolis Arsenopoulos. He's an electrical and computer engineer specializing in energy management and a member of the National Technical University of Athens team. So Apostolis will explain the features and methodology of the Smart Readiness Indicator. Oh, Apostolis, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar. So I'm here to tell you a few things about the technical framework that lies behind the SRI assessment framework. So we'll dive into some more technical details and see how it works. I'll try to be as simple as possible because it's quite important for everyone to understand how it works. So starting with this slide, the SRI calculation methodology has been built upon an inventory of smart ready services, as you may have heard, which could affect the smartness of a building based on the functionalities that they can offer. Indicative examples of smart ready services could include, for example, heat emission control, cooling emission control, supply airflow control, and stuff like this. And based on the existing EU provisions, these available smart ready services are organized in a list of 54 services in total. Okay, and there are some different functionalities that are, let's say, that accompany the smart ready services, which stand for the different levels of smartness. And we call them functionality levels. So the different functionalities are the functionality levels, and they stand for the smartness level of each service. These smart ready services, these 54 services, smart ready services, are classified in 9 technical domains, as you can see here, and produce 7 types of impacts that we call them impact criteria. So these services that are clustered into 9 technical domains are assessed, need to be assessed against 7 impact criteria. And these impact criteria are further clustered into 3, let's say, discrete categories, reflecting the main goals of the SRI, as also Christoph mentioned before, referred to as key functionalities. So we have the key functionalities, which is a clustering of the impact criteria, and we have the functionality levels, which stand for the smartness of each service. They're pretty similar, let's say, terms, how we spell them, but they stand for quite different, let's say, backgrounds. So we end up having 9 technical domains, 7 impact criteria, and 3 key functionalities, along with a service catalog of 54 services, and some weighting factors that need to be assigned to the technical domains, the impact criteria, and the key functionalities in order for the whole, let's say, calculation process to work smoothly. These are the technical domains that we mentioned before. We're talking about heating, cooling, domestic hot water, ventilation, lighting, dynamic building envelope, electricity, electric vehicle charging, and monitoring and control. Of course, this is a list of the technical domains. It's not necessary for them to be present no matter what in every building under examination. And this is also a step of the calculation methodology. We need to identify which one of them or which ones are present in the building under examination and exclude the rest of them. Okay, so this is the technical domains that we need to lay emphasis on. And these here are the impact criteria. The previously mentioned technical domains need to be assessed against these impact criteria. You can see them marked in different, let's say, in boxes marked in different colors because, as we mentioned before, these impact criteria will be further clustered into 3 key functionalities, which reflect the main goals of the SRI framework. So the first 2, the energy efficiency and maintenance and fall protection, form a specific group, Four of them, comfort, convenience, health, well-being, and accessibility, and information to occupants, form the second key functionality, the second group. And the third group comprises of energy flexibility and storage. And you can see them here. Okay, so the first two, energy efficiency and maintenance, form the key functionality named energy performance and operation. Four of the impact criteria, comfort, convenience, and so on, form the second group, which we call it response to the needs of occupants. And the final criterion, the energy flexibility and storage, stand for the energy flexibility key functionality. As you can see, these are the key functionality. These key functionalities are the main goals that the SRI has been established upon. So to assess the energy performance and operation of a building, to assess the response to the needs of occupants for a specific building, and to assess the energy flexibility of the building. And here is an overview of what we have mentioned so far: 9 technical domains, impact criteria, and key functionalities. It's quite important to be understandable, because the whole calculation process revolves around these, let's say, components. Here you can see the SRI assessment methods, because we have a list of 54 smart ready services in total, but there are some differences that can be identified. For example, when we need to assess a new building compared to an old building, a residential building compared to a non-residential building, and so on. So based on the EU provisions, there are 3 methods that can be used to perform an SRI assessment. We have method A, method B, and method C. All methods are structured based on the same methodological components, although method A makes use of a more simplified set of services. You can see here that we have a total of 25 smart ready services included in method A, and is therefore linked to, we can say, to less time-consuming efforts, and requires limited expertise of the assessor or of the individual that will carry out the SRI assessment in order to conduct the assessment, compared to the other 2. So less services, more limited expertise required. Method A was originally developed to be applied in existing residential and small non-residential buildings, while method B includes a detailed smart service catalog, including all 54 services, smart ready services, and thus it raises issues of expert assessment as of higher significance. So the more the services, the higher the expertise that is required. The more detailed method B was meant to be utilized in new buildings. For example, large non-residential buildings, multifamily buildings, etc. And it includes, it has an, let's say, underlying complexity compared to method A. And then we have method C, which is considered to be the most complex method among the ones presented, since it requires live data, which are typically obtained from smart meters, and this results to, let's say, more complex, time-consuming efforts, and let's say significantly higher expertise from the assessor's side. And however, comprehensive and inclusive specifications regarding method C use are not yet available to the public. as a method, key, let's say, guidelines have been rolled out, but it's not that we can use it without having and encountering any kind of difficulties in real life. And last but not least, regarding the differences between the methods, you can see that for method A, and this has heavily to do with the number of included services, we have an assessment time that has been calculated, has been estimated from real life assessment so far. The assessment time is approximately 1 hour, maybe 2 in some cases, while for the method B, when method B is in the spotlight, we have an assessment time that may reach 1 day in extremely difficult, let's say, situations. If we move on, we have here the methodology broken down per steps. I'll try to, let's say, summarize key information. So to begin with, we have step 1, where general building information need to be provided, but mainly focuses on the building's type. So for example, if we have a residential building or a non-residential building, a quite different approach will be adopted, methodologically speaking. And we need to provide the location because based on the established SRI methodology, there are several climate zones that have been defined, aggregated, if I can put it this way. Climate zones have been defined for Western Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, and so on. So if we provide such information, different numerical values will be uploaded to the calculation sheet based on its combination. If we have a residential building in Western Europe, it will be quite different compared to another building that can be located in Southern Europe and is a non-residential building. Okay, so we need this kind of information. It's quite crucial information, because based on this information, the default domain weighting factors will be uploaded in the calculation sheet. Then we need to select method A, method B, or method C, which method we would like to apply for carrying out this SRI assessment. We saw the differences between these methods in the previous slide. Then we need to select the present technical domains. We mentioned before that although there are 9 technical domains that should be assessed, there is a list of 9 technical domains. Not all of them should be present in a building. Of course, all of them could be present, but it's not a prerequisite. So we need to identify which domains are present and which of them are not. And after that, each domain comprises of a set of different Smart Ready services. We need to identify which of these services are present and we would like to be assessed, and which of them should be excluded. So apart from the domain, the present domains, we need to identify the present Smart Ready services, let's say, which can be found in each technical domain. Then we move on to step 5, where we need to select the functionality level per service. If you can remember my saying before about the functionality level stands for the smartness level of each service. So we need to identify the level of smartness for each service. There is a catalog where detailed descriptions in terms of smartness have been provided. So we know what are the smartness levels and their description. What do we mean by smartness level 1 when we're talking about a specific service? So we know what it is. and we need to identify which level of smartness is the best for our case for all smart ready services that are applicable to the building under examination. And after that, all of the steps that are described at the right part of the figure here lies in the strictly methodological application. Numerical values lie behind these steps. So we have the weighting factors. We need to assign weights to the technical domains, to the impact criteria, and to the key functionalities, the main three components that we saw before. These are steps 6, 7, and 8, and after 6 and 7, apologies, and then we move on to the aggregation levels. Let's say we move upwards. We'll see how it works in more detail in a few slides. We move upwards and we calculate the smartness of the impact criteria. After that, we move one step further and we calculate the smartness of the key functionalities. And finally, we calculate the total SRI score. Here you can see what I mentioned before about the functionality levels, namely the smartness level of each service. You can see that we have 5 levels of smartness from 0 to 4. Level 0 stands for the practically non-smart service, let's say the most simple service, and level 4 stands for the maximum smartness of a service. And you can notice that each of these smartness levels for a specific smart ready service, let's say, they have a specific performance against the impact criteria, how they perform against energy efficiency. We have a specific smart ready service, and we select, for example, that that this service corresponds to a level 2, for example. So we isolate the level 2 line from the table here, and we see how this specific smart ready service for this specific smartness level performs against the impact criteria. Okay, and the performance ranges from 0 to 3. We have an example also here. You can see that for the technical domain heating, an indicative smart ready service is the heat emission control, and the practically non-smart, let's say, level includes no automatic control of the heat emission control, no automatic control, and the most, say, smart level of this specific service is to control the heat emission to each room of the building under examination, and having also communication and presence occupancy control from room to room. Okay, so this is the most smart level, and you may notice that, you may understand, you may, let's say, it may seem pretty natural that the higher the functionality level of smart ready service, the higher the impact, the positive impact that it has to the total SRI score. So we move on to the weightings. We need to assign weighting factors to the technical domains, the impact criteria, and the key functionalities. To assign the weighting factors to the impact criteria and the key functionalities, it's quite simple. It's the equal weighting method. So we have 3 key functionalities, 1/3 is assigned to each. Of course, this is something that can be tailored and adjusted per case. This is the guideline, the general guideline that the European Commission has rolled out, and we say we use it the way it is. So we have three key functionalities. 1/3 is assigned to each of them, each of the key functionalities. And you can see behind the key function, below the key functionalities, I have the impact criteria. The first two form the energy performance and operation key functionality. So we have 1 second assigned to each of them. Then the four next impact criteria form the second key functionality. So we have 1/4 assigned to each of them. And the last impact criterion, the energy flexibility and storage, forms the energy flexibility key functionality. So all of the, let's say, assigned number is transferred, if I can put it this way, to the impact criterion. The most, let's say, crucial part of the methodology can be found here, which is to assign weighting factors to the technical domains against the impact criteria. We have three methods to do so. All of them are used simultaneously, and numerical values are extracted based on all three of them. The first one of them is the fixed weighting. It's quite simple, and this approach prescribes a weighting method for the domains that provides fixed estimated impacts of technical domains on the score of each impact criterion. Following this approach, the weights of technical domains could be different across the impact criteria. You can see here, for example, that we have the weighting, the importance, in other words, of the dynamic building envelope, the fixed weighting. You can see the boxes marked in light orange, I suppose. You can see there that the importance of the dynamic building envelope technical domain in the energy efficiency front is 5%, while the importance of dynamic building envelope, the same technical domain against maintenance and fall protection is against, apologies, the importance of monitoring and control against the same impact criterion has been set to 20%. Fixed weightings, it is what it is. We cannot deal with them. We use the exact same values. Of course, the main implication here in diving into such an approach is the underlying subjectivity, as you may understand, since it is heavily relied on experts' personal experiences and knowledge. There is no scientific evidence to support it. Prior communication we had with the SRI platform, they mentioned that they had extensive stakeholder engagement rounds with experts, and they made available some standards that they used to provide these values. It's a quite complex process, but in any case, we use the exact same fixed weighting values. Then we have the values that are included in the box marked in green color, the equal weighting. It's the exact same method that we used for the weighting of key functionalities and impact criteria before. And following this approach, the weights of technical domains could differ as well among the impact criteria. However, they remain the same, as you can see, in terms of values within its impact category. And how do we extract these values? These values are obtained by dividing the remaining weight for a given impact criterion, which should sum should sum to 100%. We extract the fixed weighting values. So for our case here, if we see the comfort, for example, column vertically, and we extract the fixed weighting values, and then we divide what's left to the remaining technical domains. Again, we have the equal weighting, and the most important of them all is the energy balance weighting. it's something quite different from the compared to the fixed weighting and equal weighting. This approach has been established upon providing a weighting scheme for the technical domains that incorporates estimated impacts of the domains on the building's energy balance, and the energy balance allows the derivation of the relative importance of different domains, taking into account, this is the let's say a critical point, individualized buildings characteristics, such as the building type, if it is residential or non-residential, the climate zone, the location and everything. It's a pretty simple mathematical equation that should be applied to extract these values for the energy balance weighting. And what it does pretty much is to divide the energy used for heating, for example, divided by the sum of the energy used for the rest of the technical domains that are included in the energy balance weighting. So we have a nominator Q heating, and the denominator is Q heating plus Q cooling plus Q domestic hot water and so on. Okay, for the energy balance weighting, it's the 5 climate zones that let's say affect a lot the final numerical values. And we have the building types. You can see here that according to the EU guidelines, the building types could differ from single family houses to large multi-family buildings and everything. But for now, we have only a distinction between residential and non-residential buildings, and that's all. One last, let's say, methodological slide is to present in a few words the whole methodology. Everything, all of these components, the weighting factors, the performances of each smart ready service, the domains and the impact criteria are structured in a multi-criteria analysis problem. So we have in the percentages symbols. You can see them as having the performance of the heating, cooling, domestic hot water, and so on, the performance of the technical domains against the impact criteria. And you may keep in mind that we also have the weightings for these technical domains. So we move upwards, as I mentioned before, we move upwards and we calculate the smartness of the impact criteria, considering the technical domains, their performances, and their weighting factors. Okay, so we have the performance and the weightings for the technical domains against these impact criteria. We move upwards, namely we multiply and sum the performances and the weighting factors vertically. The performance of heating multiplied by the energy efficiency, by the weighting factor of heating against energy efficiency, and the performance of cooling multiplied by the weighting of cooling against energy efficiency, and so on. We multiply, we aggregate, and then we have the smartness of energy efficiency, of maintenance and fall protection, and so on. Once we have these values, then we move one step further upwards, always upwards. Namely, we have a vertical analysis, and we have the performance of energy efficiency. We have the weighting of energy efficiency, and everything for the rest of the impact criteria. We multiply, we sum these values, and we have in the exact same way, we have the smartness of the key functionalities. And by applying the same, let's say, calculation step, we have the final SRI score by multiplying the performance of the key functionalities by multiplying the performance by their weighting factors. Of course, we can have an horizontal analysis of the problem and calculate the smartness of each technical domain, the heating, cooling, and so on. But the main point here is that we move in most of the cases, always we need to move upwards, but we may need to move in an horizontal way to extract more insights and information about the domains. But in order to calculate the final SRI score, we need to move upwards. And that's it. Just a few words. I don't know, suppose there's not enough time. Christoph also mentioned the implementation pathways, and I wanted to make also a comment here, because no matter what the calculation method is and how detailed it is and how smart the building is, we have the implementation pathways which indicate the pathway, because no matter it doesn't matter if we have the most smart buildings in for our case. It's the main question remains as to how we can boost the SRI uptake and make everyone adopt the scheme and be able to perform it. So it's really important to understand which is the implementation pathway that best fits our case and our context. Because some of them are market-based, some of them rely on the citizens to make the assessment, some of them provide incentives, and some of them are linked to well-established, let's say, schemes such as the EPC. And this is something that should be taken into consideration as well. The main challenges, we also saw them because it's something that has heavily to do with implementation pathways. So we need to keep them in mind as well. But Christoph told you more about it. And just as a, let's say, remark of this whole analysis that we performed is that the calculation methodology is a very nice process. It's a little complex. We have the implementation pathways, we have everything, we have our trigger points, but what the main direction of the European Commission is that Smart Readiness Indicator should be, according to their approach, should be linked to the energy performance certificates. And this whole framework, both the legal front, the legislative front, and the methodological front, should revolve around the EPC. Of course, it's something that can be adjusted, should be adjusted. They want us to adjust it according to our context, to our country, to our specifications, and according to everything. But as a main guideline, as a main direction, it seems to be the most effective, because EPC is something that is well known and well established, at least for now. And that's it. I hope I was not too tiring, because it's methodology and is always, quite tricky to make it simple. In any case, I hope that you all enjoyed it, and thank you very much. And I'm open to any questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Apostolis. For sure, you were not tiring. And thank you again for the very detailed and insightful presentation on the SRI methodology. And it looks like there are no questions at the moment, so I assume that everything was quite clear. However, if you have any questions, even after the webinar, please don't hesitate to visit the SRI-ENACT website and use the contact form, and we will be happy to respond to you via email. So that brings us to the conclusion of the first episode of the webinar series. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to the second episode, which will take place online on 5th of December. If we could just go to the next slide, please, so that everyone can see the schedule for the next episodes. And the next session will focus on the SRI in policy frameworks, explaining where the Smart Readiness Indicator is officially being tested at the moment, and why other member states are encouraged to join the move and test the Smart Readiness Indicator on their territories. And we will hear insights from the 8 pilot countries of the SRI-ENACT project about how the testing process has unfolded and what advice they would give to other countries preparing to adopt Smart Readiness Indicator. And finally, I also encourage you to follow the SRI-ENACT project on LinkedIn as well as X, and on the website, of course, where you will find all the relevant information on upcoming webinars together with registration pages that will be published very soon. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. Once again, many thanks to our speakers and to all of you for attending this webinar. And we look forward to seeing you again on 5th of December. So have a wonderful day and goodbye.